Great work by the whole team. The VFX is so nice as an Indian movie. Acting of everyone is so good. This can be watched one time. Kids will really enjoy this movie. Second review. This is essentially Marvel-style adaptation of ancient Ramayana story. Enjoy the movie as a movie. Pros, strong, righteous Ram character. And so it goes on. Alright, let's talk about Adipurush, a modern adaptation of an Indian epic Ramayana which follows the exiled prince Raghav's journey to rescue his wife Janaki from the demon king Lankesh. This film should have concentrated more on its CGI and its VFX than the issues within the dialogue, because there were so many issues. Dialogue had to be replaced because it offended some people, and other dialogue had to be replaced because I don't know. There was a lot of mishmash of happenings inside this movie before it was even released. However, I love me some massive Indian epics, and I thought, you know what? I'm in the mood for one. I've seen a couple of really good ones. This is now on Netflix, at least in the UK. I think it's probably mostly worldwide in the territories that Netflix owns or has its streaming service. And I went into this thinking, this looks epic. It's going to be so good. It's got the magic. It's got the fighting. It's got the music. Everything. It was rife. The budget. It's had a huge budget. And then I watched this movie and I thought, what on earth happened? So we'll get the negatives out the way and we'll finish on what positives I liked from it. The massive negative, obviously, is the VFX. It looks like you're playing an early PS3 game, sometimes even PS2 game. If this movie was a movie that is like completely CGI, and it was early CGI and only had a few humans in it, and it's like a game adaptation, or actually just one of those Resident Evil CGI games, then maybe perhaps you could get away with believing what they've done. But because it's all CGI and they have a weird chroma key and it looks like the color settings are constantly wrong. Often there are places where our characters look like they've been placed over a green screen and you can notice the background drop. There are so many moments in this film that you just notice things that are wrong. Never mind talking about the animals. There are so many animals in this that are CG because they talk. It's a massively heavy, big production. But there have been other movies that have done this so much better, that have had a big budget, like, you know, you think of the Hollywood stuff that's in there. You think Avatar, you think some of the Jungle Book movies, you think some of the Marvel movies. You've seen the CGI that can be produced. Here, it just looks bad. Most of the time it looks bad, and I was so surprised by this because on one hand the reviewers, which I'm normally not with on the critics side, all kind of suggest and say this, that the CGI is as bad as I was thinking was, and then on the other hand you go and look at the people who are rating this above 66%, and I'm just wondering who paid you off, because honestly this film isn't good. It's an hour and a half too long. It's drawn out conversations that don't need to be there. The music somehow doesn't fit often when there is music, and the acting feels stunted, mostly because the use of continued slow motion throughout the movie detracts from the story. There are moments, if you use a certain technique that I've seen it used in Indian movies as well, where you have the slow motion that adds to the epicness of what's going on. But because you have bad CG, you have this dialogue that feels forced, and then you have the slow moments of like the heroes or the enemy that are coming on screen. This happens continuously. It detracts from the kind of technique that you're using. So by the time you get to the end of the movie, you just want it to be over and see whether the hero will overcome the enemy, because it is classic evil, well, good versus evil, almost a David versus Goliath sort of enemy. An enemy, and this is one positive of the film. The story begins with showing us how this particular person with powers has come to a place where he wants one thing, and he's able to achieve that. And because of this one thing that he's given, he now has an intenseness around him all the time. He feels that he's undefeatable. And so there is a tenseness to the story the whole way through, because you're wondering if anybody's going to face off against him, how on earth are they going to defeat him? And that was a nice technique or a story element to have it in there, because you're a little bit on edge always. Some of the fighting sequences were fun and creative, although you always have the drawback of the CGI or the CG, the movements. Some of the creativity with the costumes I really enjoyed. Some of the ideas of them fighting felt very anime, and I'm a huge fan of anime. I like the score, feels very epic and big, as you'd expect in this. Doesn't always fit. There's all these elements that of an amazing movie in there. The biggest thing that detracts from this film is the VFX. If you can ignore the VFX, you may find something to enjoy here. But I would recommend watching other films like Brahmastra. The first part of that is incredible. The VFX are way better than this film. There are a number of films that should have been nominated for Oscars, or at least, not just one for the music, but actually won last year at the Oscars. And you know the one I'm talking about, RRR, of course. That was excellent. You want epics, go and watch that. This one I would avoid. I'm going to give this one Nicolas Cage out of 5.
And you got one. Congratulations.
And I'm giving it 1 because I like some of the costumes, I like some of the music, and I like some of the creativity, but the rest was just a failed experiment, which is sad because I was really hoping that this one would be great. Let me know your thoughts down below. What in your mind is the biggest flops in Indian big blockbuster movies? I've seen some great and I've seen some not so great. Sequel to Hollywood. We've had so many flops recently in Hollywood, especially with the Marvel movies, because we're feeling, or DC as well, because we're feeling superheroed out, and there's too much of that, and the effects of everybody having to work 18 hours a day but not being paid what they're worth is obviously being felt in Hollywood with the strikes going on now. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.